All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have this all Gigabyte gaming PC all booted up and ready to go, let's talk about a couple benchmarks real quick. Now, we decided to test this PC in a couple of titles, those being Apex Legends, Borderlands 3, Call of Duty Vanguard, and the Halo Infinite multiplayer beta, which we'll talk more about here in a second. First up, in Apex Legends on max settings at 1440p, we did test every single game at 1440p. We averaged 150 FPS. This is where we start to see that the clear bottleneck in the system is the 3060 Ti, and we'll see later on in the benchmarks how this continues and brings up a more interesting discussion about 12th gen Intel. But getting 150 plus FPS at 1440p on Apex Legends in max settings is still very impressive. Most people would not run max settings Apex Legends because you're going for more optimized high frame rate, so you're probably going to want to lower the settings and rely a lot more on that CPU, and I could easily see you getting 200 plus FPS constant at 1080p or 1440p with lower settings. Now, next up, in Borderlands 3 on ultra settings at 1440p using the built-in benchmark, we averaged 81 FPS. Once again, the 3060 Ti is the bottleneck, but again, running really max settings on Borderlands 3, which is no easy feat at 1440p, and getting over 60 FPS is still very impressive. But one thing that I'm drawing from all these benchmarks so far is that 12th gen Intel really needs a super high-end GPU to make a whole lot of sense. You're spending a lot of money on the CPU, a lot of money right now on the motherboard, and DDR5 memory. It really only makes sense to go with something like a 3070 Ti or above level card. When newer like B660 boards or whatever lower end chipset comes out and the more locked CPUs come out to the market, and maybe DDR5 gets a little bit more affordable, then those 3060 Ti's make a lot of sense with like a i5 12400. I'm totally guessing what the model's name would be, but like a 12400 or something like that would probably work really well. But at this current moment, something like a Ryzen 7 5800X makes a whole lot more sense in terms of value for money for a 3060 Ti. Now, that doesn't mean that this system is awful. As you can see on Call of Duty Vanguard on ultra settings at 1440p, we got 100 plus FPS. It just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of value for money. But if you're somebody who really wants 12th gen Intel and managed to get a 3060 Ti, I wouldn't complain if you did that. That's still a really awesome build. I just think if you're going to go 12 gen and spend all that money already on DDR5 and a really high-end CPU and motherboard, even the i5 is pretty high-end, you should really go for a super high-end GPU like a 6800XT or higher, or a 3070 Ti or higher. Also, let me know down below what you think of Call of Duty Vanguard. This is my first time actually playing it in this benchmark run, and I'm not a huge fan of it. It's not the worst game in the world, but it's definitely a little bit different from other Call of Duties in the past, so let me know what you think down below. And I was actually very lucky to be able to test the Halo Infinite beta on high settings at 1440p and to get 100 plus FPS. The main reason being, I was benchmarking this PC and I got a tweet that said, well, the Halo Infinite beta is out, so I went ahead, downloaded it on Steam, and launched it day one and got some benchmarks. So take some of these numbers with a grain of salt. There's probably going to be some updates later down the line that will improve performance, but at 1440p, at this current moment, we got 100 plus FPS. So overall, this build is really awesome, and that cooler from Gigabyte, the Aorus Waterforce cooler, kept that CPU nice and cool. It'd be perfectly adequate for cooling pretty much any CPU on the market, even the 12900K. So if you're looking to build a super high-end gaming rig and want to keep that thing nice and cool, along with a very awesome ecosystem of RGB products, definitely check the link down below and pick up the Gigabyte Waterforce cooler, along with some of the RGB fans that they send over to really deck out this PC build. So now we finished the benchmarking section of today's video. How to bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.